What is going on, guys? Today I am back to talk about Italian horror, and Italian horror is really interesting. My biggest exposure to Italian horror is Dario Argento. I've watched a lot of his catalog, and what I love about Italian horror films is they're so strange in their presentation methods. The scores that accompany the film are usually very interesting, and the Italian horror filmmaker I'm going to be discussing today is a very predominant one, and that is Lucio Fulci. And I've actually never seen a Lucio Fulci film. This was my very first one that I've ever watched, and I watched this movie because I hear a lot of really great things about it. And the movie I'm going to be talking about today is The Beyond. The Beyond is directed by Lucio Fulci. A young woman inherits an old hotel in Louisiana where, following a series of supernatural accidents, she learns that the building was built over one of the entrances to hell. So, as I said, I've never seen a Lucio Fulci film before. This was my very first exposure to any of his work, and I thought this movie was really entertaining. I very much enjoyed myself. I don't think it's perfect. It has a lot of flaws, especially surrounding its pacing, but it's still a really engaging and entertaining horror film that I'm excited to tell you about it today. So it's a very simple premise. We have our lead character, Liza, who inherits a hotel, and she's getting people to come in and work on it. Different people coming in and out. She has a plumber early on that comes to try to fix a water leak in the basement. She has a maid that's working on cleaning up the rooms. And all these strange series of events start happening where people start getting killed off that go in there, and all these weird things happen. And one day, while Liza is out and about, she runs into a young blind woman, Emily, who tells her that she shouldn't take the hotel, that she should give it all up. And after that, the supernatural events start to increase and increase, blowing up into the third act conclusion. So, as I said, I'd never experienced a Fulci film before, and what I want to say first off, the practical effects in this movie are some of the best I think I've ever seen. Truly remarkable what Fulci and his crew were able to pull off in this movie. Just some really disturbing, disgusting imagery. Apparently, Fulci is very much known for his eye gouging scenes in his movie, and there are some stuff with eyeballs in this that just kind of make you shake down to your core. There's a scene where a guy's face gets eaten by tarantulas that is really just uncomfortable and unsettling. I loved all how like goopy and grimy everything looks, and obviously there's moments where you can tell that like the heads are like casts of people's heads. It doesn't look the most realistic, but for the most part, the effects are really fantastic and they're really cool to look at. And it's fun to think about when they were filming this, how they pulled certain sequences off. And I was just completely enamored in every scene where the violence was kind of through the roof. I think the performances in this are fine. One of the things when you get into watching Italian horror films is most of them are dubbed, and a lot of them have actors from all over the place, especially with Dario Argento films. He was really into just casting people, whoever he wanted. He didn't really care what language you spoke or where you came from, because he's just like, we'll dub it all later. And that's what it seems to be like in this movie as well, where everything is dubbed. You can tell when it's an American actor or when it's an actor from a different country because the dialogue doesn't match up to what they're saying. And that kind of adds a charm to the movie. Sometimes it's laughable with how dialogue is delivered, but I think it adds a certain level of charm when you know you're watching an Italian horror film, because that is ever present. And I like the idea of this movie. They try to peg it as a mystery, but you really, if you read the description to the film and at the beginning of the movie, you kind of realize what you're getting into. So there isn't much of a mystery outside of Emily's character when she's introduced, because like she kind of comes out of nowhere. You don't really know who she is. You're trying to figure out more who she is rather than what's going on at the hotel, because you can kind of pick up on that relatively early on. And I liked that element of it. The biggest issue I have with this movie, like I said, is the pacing. I feel like the pacing gets really bad in moments where there are sequences that just don't provide anything to the story, that just feel kind of out of place, and that don't really provide any level of entertainment for the film. They just feel like filler to kind of make the movie about an hour and a half. And anytime those sequences came up, I was uninterested. But as soon as it would jump into a more high octane, violent moment in the movie, I was right there again. And it's unfortunate because I really like the premise of this. I think it's really interesting. But I don't think the story is captivating enough to really hold your attention outside of the really fantastic practical effects and the very unique score that the film has, which I will say, the score to this film and most of the Italian horror I've seen, they're always really great and they're really unique. They're not always, the songs that you hear aren't always necessarily what you would think would accompany a specific scene. And I think that's what I enjoyed so much about watching this, is just kind of wondering which direction it was going to go. And even though there are moments in the film that I feel like are paced relatively poorly, it doesn't take away from the fact that it's a really enjoyable viewing experience. I had fun the entire time, despite the moments that I felt a little bit pulled out. And I do think if you're into horror films that have incredible practical effects, this is definitely one to get into. It actually kind of reminded me a little bit of the film The Prowler, not necessarily in subject matter, but as far as I love The Prowler because it's some of Tom Savini's best practical effects. And that's a film that I come back to and revisit because of how much I love the practical effects, but the pacing of that film isn't all that great. That's much more of a straightforward slasher, where this film has a lot more of a supernatural tone to it, less of just a person going around killing people. It reminded me of that film in a similar vein, of that I would feel like I would revisit this solely for the practical effects and the really incredible horror sequences that are in this movie. And I did have a lot of fun watching this. I'll be really interested to watch some more Fulci films. I'm hoping to watch another one in this October season because I haven't watched all of his work. And if you want a movie with really phenomenal practical effects, you should definitely check out The Beyond. So have you seen The Beyond? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was a really entertaining time. Despite it not having perfect pacing, I still thought it was a lot of fun, and I'm really glad I watched it. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.